illegals coming across the river. We've seen dozens and dozens of illegals coming across the river. That was February 26th. But here's the Rio Grande River, a foggy morning below Laredo, March 1st. And here's where there's a drop, March 5th, 86. But here's where Mexicans in the Tamuuli area were shoveling sand for cement March 7th. But here's where they're planting 70 acres of sorghum on a Spanish King land grant area, 200 years old. That was March 7th. Here's in the market in Reynosa, March 10th. And then here's more Mexicans. These kids are from Mexico City, March 18th. And here's illegals coming across to the U.S. side east of Brownsville, March 19th. And here's a main path of illegals coming into the Texas side out of the Rio Grande, March 19th. And we get to the mouth of the Rio Grande River at the Gulf of Mexico, March 22nd. And here's kids that are fishing, and this one caught a right-eyed flounder. It's a boy's first fish. That was March 22nd. But we're going to take a couple hundred miles of Laguna Madre, and it's very windy and open. That's March 22nd. But here's where we have a camp on the wide flats of Padre Island area, March 25th. And here's where we come to what's up, the Lecken Lights place, March 25th. And there's Rose. She's with a giant sheephead. This is at the Big Drumfish, the Gulf Winds Fishing Pier, March 26th. And then here's a sand blowout with some kind of moss on top of it. And then I caught a sea trout, March 27th, on a shrimp jig. Here's a evening primrose, or the yellow rose of Texas. That's Easter, March 30th. And here's the Emily Payne family. She's a warden for like the Audubon Society, and we had a picnic with her family. And here's coming, the southeast wind is blowing us into Corpus Christi Bay, March 30th. And we're at Portland, Texas, near Corpus Christi, and we're planning to ship our boats to Green River, Wyoming, and we're going to hitchhike. But here we're hitchhiking, and there's John May near Austin, Texas. That was a butte. That was April 7th. And then here's a camp near West Texas. But here's Ted Young in New Mexico. He used to be a marshal in the 1920s in the Fort Sumner area, April 9th. Then we stayed with the Irwins while we're hitchhiking near Fort Sumner, New Mexico. But here we're near Taos, New Mexico, April 10th. And here's the Rio Grande Gorge near Taos, New Mexico, April 10th. And now we have hitchhiked into Colorado, near Salida, Colorado, April 11th. And then we're up to Leadville, Colorado, April 11th. And then we get out of the high country that was kind of chilly, and we get towards Glenwood Springs along the Grand River, April 12th, 1986. And then we're hitchhiking near Craig, Colorado, and this is on the 13th of April. A thunderstorm hit us during the night and dumped heavy wet snow on us. But then we get to Jensen, Utah, where we have friends. We spend a few days, and then Les White drove us to Green River, Wyoming, over the Uinta Mountains, April 16th. But here's Bonnie White and Cody and Les White. They were over Flaming Gorge Dam. And then we get to Green River, Wyoming, and there's Jim and Gladys Ball. That was Jim Ball getting a ride in the Green River, April 18th. And then we get our cart back from the Jim and Gladys Ball, and now we're heading for South Pass in the Red Desert country, April 20th. But that was April 21st in the Red Desert area, and then now here we're getting towards South Pass, April 23rd in the Badlands area near the south end of the Wind River Mountains. But the map shows just generally where we are. We're heading into the Missouri River watershed country. That was April 27th, 1986, and a lot of the drifts along the Sweetwater River look like small glaciers and are quite scenic, and one of them was tunneled ice. And then we get to the Sweetwater Gorge, which is a few miles long and a bunch of rapids and not very navigable for us when we have heavy kayaks. That was May 1st, 1986. And the wood ticks were horrible. If we didn't be careful, we'd get 50 wood ticks on us every day. But here's antelope that were watching us when we're portaging high over the the Sweetwater Canyon. That was May 1st, but that's looking down into the Sweetwater Canyon. It's all rapids, and we didn't want to navigate that, so we portaged overland. But we get out of the Sweetwater Canyon and then into more open country, and then we'd find geese to eat here and there now and then. But that's May 5th, 1986. Roses near fallen sandstone blocks in sagebrush, and we're along the Granite Range, and that's Soda Lakes, which are alkali lakes. That was May 9th near the McIntosh Ranch, and we're at the Granite Range. That's one of our camps, May 10th, along the Granite Range of the Sweetwater River. The Sweetwater River was running high and flooding, and there's Rose taking a shortcut over a loop that's over flooded pasture. And then that's May 11th along the Granite Range, and then there's Devil's Gate there. We had to be careful because there's rapids in there. And then here's a view of Independence Rock, a famous landmark of the Oregon Trail. And in 1850s and 1830s, the Oregon Trail people left their names pecked into the rock, and we have our name there too. But this is May 13th, 1986, our camp at Independence Rock. And then we come to the Pathfinder Dam, which is 214 feet high, built in 1903, 1909. That was May 14th. And there's the gorge below Pathfinder Dam that we're going to portage it. And a Wyoming hunter had a game cart, one-wheeled game cart that he allowed us to use so we could take our boats and portage some miles around this gorge. And that's the Chugwater Formation near Casper, Wyoming, at Immigrant Gap, north side of Immigrant Gap, the Red Chugwater Formation. And we're heading further. This is east of Casper, Wyoming, and that's sheep under the cottonwood trees under a heavy thunderstorm. And this is Flaming Red Beds southeast of Douglas, Wyoming, North Platte River, May 22nd, 1986. This is Arcos and Shale Bluffs, and this is along the Hartville Uplift area, Upper Glendale Reservoir, May 23rd, 1986. And this is flooded North Platte Canyon, Upper Glendale Reservoir. Massive marble metamorphosed limestone. We were finding morel mushrooms with the cactus under the cottonwood trees and willows. This here is below Glendale Dam, built 1954 to 1958, May 24th. And this is Rose and Jerry McCart of Lusk, Wyoming, below the dam, May 24th. This is scenic rimrock slopes of the North Platte River below Glendale Dam, May 25th. And then we're coming upon another flooded canyon in the North Platte River, May 25th. And this is near Guernsey, Wyoming, flooded North Platte River. And this is below the Guernsey Dam. And anyway, then there's fossil karst photography, topography, a quartzite atop marble below Guernsey Dam. You can see where there's some sinkholes that are fossil. And then we're out of the canyons, and then this is Register Cliff of the Oregon Trail, 1857, May 27th, Register Cliff here. And then we come to Fort Laramie here, famous for treaties and whatever with the Indians in the 1860s, May 28th. And then this is the confluence of the Laramie River with the North Platte River. And I have a large snapping turtle, May 29th here. And then here's a 14-inch shell, soft shell turtle that might be 20 or 30 years old. They're slow-growing turtles. And then we get to Scotts Bluff, Nebraska. Here's Scotts Bluff, about 700 feet high above the river. In 1828, Scott died here after being wounded at the Laramie River. And we take a hike. This is May 31st. We're taking a hike to the top of Scotts Bluff. There's a view east down the Platte Valley from top of Scotts Bluff. And anyway, here there's irrigation dam, June 1st, 1986. And there's the famous landmark on the Oregon Trail, Chimney Rock, what's left of it. and then here's a bull snake that they like to pretend they're rattlesnakes, and they whip their tail onto the leaves and sound like they're rattling. But here's June 3rd. There's the doe commanded the fawns to be still, and here's a typical meal we're eating: goose for breakfast, and there's a wash pot, and then we're eating oatmeal cake, and then here's a goose family. We see a lot of goose families. And anyway, this is below Maganahay Reservoir. There's hardly even less than 1% of the whole Platte River. This is June 6th, and then after a heavy thunderstorm, this is what's little water in the Platte River we have after I open an irrigation dam, and those were mammatus clouds. But here's Yucca on the north slope behind an arch bridge, June 7th on the Platte River. Then we get to North Platte, Nebraska, June 8th, and here we're having a picnic by some friendly gals. But below the confluence of the South Platte River at the North Platte River, we had no water. And anyway, then we get to Cozad, barely, June 12th. But then they had excess rain, so they opened up the gates and we had water in the Platte River. And there's a snapping turtle, June 13th. But here are, on the Platte River, there's catalpa trees, June 15th. For 3 weeks, the river's going to be dried up if we don't get moving. But here are political aides to the Nebraska legislature on a boating trip, June 16th. And here's below the mouth of the Loup River, which runs into the North Platte River, a real river again, June 18th. But anyway, I had dental problems, and anyway, this dentist at North Bend, Nebraska, Johnson, gave me a canoe disc, he called it. But then now we're at Fremont, Nebraska, and then that's Los. It was Los slopes, glacial crushed sand. But anyway, just as June 21st, in a rocky bowl, gave us a 7-pound deer sausage. But then there was beaver cuttings, and then here's a view from a tower in a park near Louisville, a park tower, June 22nd. And then here we're approaching the mouth of the Platte River, June 22nd, and I'm on a sandbar. But here's at Platte's Mouth, Nebraska, June 23rd. We've reached the Missouri River, and now we're on the swift channelized Missouri River, and we're down. And here's we're into Kansas. There's a cave, Indian cave, and that's June 26th in Pennsylvania, type sandstone. But here's a pivot bridge at Atkinson, Kansas, June 27th. And then we're at Leavenworth, Kansas, June 27th. We take a little tour of Leavenworth, the famous prison area. Here's our camp the next day, June 28th, across from Leavenworth. We're in Iowa, and that's a pivot bridge that opened up. Then we get to Kansas City, Missouri on June 28th. And then we meet Denise and Chad and Michelle from Independence, Missouri, and they invite us to spend a night with them, which we do. And here we are embarking from a camp at Glasgow, July 2nd. And here's at Boonville, Missouri, July 3rd, the bridge crosses. And now this is flowering vines that are high on the south-facing cliffs, July 3rd. And here's west of Columbus, the capital of Missouri, July 3rd. There's limestone cliffs, and there's an old railroad track, and we take a hike and climb on top of a cliff, a view down the river looking east of Jefferson City, July 3rd. And here we're at Herman. Germans began the town in 1836, and they dug wine caves, and it was 100-something degree heat, and it really felt hot. But here are a 15-pound catfish that a man is showing us at Washington, Missouri. Some of them are up to 40 pounds. And here's a wing dam that's high water's going over the neck of a wing dam, July 6th. We're getting down towards St. Louis now, and then there's sandbars, which are rare on the channelized Missouri River. And here's a Tuffa cliff below St. Louis, July 7th, Tuffa freshwater limestone. And then this is west of Alton, Illinois, July 7th. And then here we're in the Alton Lock, the last lock and dam on the Mississippi River, or the first one. That's July 8th. And then above the lock and dam, there's sculptured cliffs on the Illinois side, south of Grafton. That's July 10th. And here we go into the Illinois River, and there's catfish, July 10th. And then we stop to see Anna Clemmy for a couple of days, and Walter and Ray, July 12th. And in 1913, Ernie caught a 120-pound catfish, and in 1984 our neighbor caught a 100-pound catfish. But here's in the Little Kingdom, there's a church, July 13th. It's between the Mississippi River and the Illinois River, and there's no bridges. But here's at Hardin, Illinois, the Little Kingdom they call it, and there's Kermit Bell. He phoned a reporter. But here's a ferry, a free ferry to the Little Kingdom. There's no bridges to the Little Kingdom. But then here's around Pearl, Illinois, a boat with clam fish tackle, because they would get clams for buttons. But here's a downbound barge, Beardstown Bridge, July 16th. And here's the ruins of an old barge repair lock, July 19th, and then we're in the Peoria, Illinois area, July 21st, and in 1910 Lake Peoria was the best commercial bass fishing. But there's the Swain, the Julia Swain steamboat, and then found a flood stranded metal duck boat, and here we're in a barge lock. It's Starved Rock Lock and Dam, July 24th, and there's Starved Rock. It's got white cedar and white pine on top of it, and it's further south by far than the Minnesota border, but that's July 25th. And then here's at the Marseille Lock, which empties 11.5 million gallons, that's July 26th. And then this the East Side, built 1848, 1850, July 28th. Anyway, now we're into the channelized Chicago River, which drains out of Lake Michigan. In 1894, engineers decided that they're going to drain water from Lake Michigan down the Chicago River, and then because it was a pollution problem, that was July 29th. And then there's lift bridges in Chicago, that's August 1st. And then the Chicago River Channel takes us past the Sears Tower, and that's August 1st, 1986. And then there's no place to camp for 30 miles until we get to the Baha'i Temple in North Chicago, and we camp in the little woods that's there. But then here's a strong east wind north of Kenosha, August 6th, that strands us for a day. And then we get we're at Port Washington, and then we're invited in for a kegger August 9th. And then this is south of Kewanee, August 13th. And then here's Professor Barb Bull with a 9,000-year-old white cedar that was being covered by advancing glacier again. In August 13th, we saw that. And then here's the first Austin people that I had met at the Hormel plant and heard about them for years. That's August 13th, and they gave us a 7-pound salmon that they had caught. That's George Ginockery and Van Wiggins and Jim Barnett. But now then we get to Kewanee Ferry, that's Frankfort, Michigan, August 14th, and then here's the lighthouse from Sturgeon Bay taking us to Green Bay. And then now we're going to the Fox River from Green Bay, which is an old fur trade route from Montreal and Quebec to even Alaska 200 years ago. But these locks are from the 1840s, and they're hand operated. We used several of them. We had to portage some of them. But anyway, then here's at Princeton, Wisconsin, up the Fox River, August 26th. And then we get to Lily Pad, Lake Puckaway. That's an 82-year-old man, Elmer Stiltmer, told us about the fantastic duck hunting in the 1900 times, plus the 1940 Armistice Day storm that killed many people on that lake. And then now we get from the Wisconsin, we get to the Wisconsin River, and then we portage into the Dells, and that's the Upper Dells, some of the chasms of the Upper Dells, September 1st, 1986. And then there's some of the side canyon tours of the Upper Dells, and then we portage back around the dam, and there's the Tunnel Island in the Lower Dells. And then we're going down the Wisconsin River, which is part of the old fur trade route of 200-something years ago. But here's a power plant at Prairie at Dussac, Wisconsin. That's September 4th. And then here's one of our camps, a prairie camp after a chilly night, September 6th. And then this is further down, September 7th, where Rose is loading her kayak. And then we get to the Mississippi River, and this is near McGregor, Iowa. That's a fisherman with his wife with a buffalo fish. And then near Prairie du Chien, then we stop. There's a fur press at the Fur House built in 1828. And then here's ginseng. That's a ginseng that's probably 20, 30 years old, and we were hunting ginseng for many days too for some money. Now here I'm back after 5.5 years. I'm back to Minnesota, and this is in the backwaters near Genoa, Wisconsin. And then we take the Root River west. This is and it's flooded, and here we are heading for below Houston, Minnesota, September 22nd. And then this is September 27th, working our way up the Root River, the North Branch Root River, and then by Lanesboro. Here's Root River Power and Light, 1950, a hydro tower, and here's our camp on the big loop of the hydroelectric project, and that's September 28th. And then here's part of my old trap line for years. It's near the there's 3 side valleys that come together, but anyway, this is west of Chatfield. There's the biggest sandstone cliff that's natural on the Root River, and we're heading for Stewartville. That's October 2nd. And here's where Rose is in Maple Valley, giving two of my a niece and a nephew rides in the kayak. And then here's Rose beneath a limestone ledge cliff, October 5th, and then this here is a 120-foot high Ordovician cliff near east of Stewartville, Minnesota. But this here is a 140-year-old barn, and then we get to Stewartville, and here's the dam to Lake Florence, which now it's gone. That's October 6th. And then and west of Stewartville, then here's the largest overhanging limestone ledge on the whole Root River. That's October 7th. And then we get up into the we're in the glaciated area now, and there's glacial boulders in the Root River. And then we're getting into the headwaters of the North Branch Root River, and that's October 9th, and there's a lot of log jams and such. But here's a bunch of cattle along the Root River near Dexter, October 9th. And then there's a beaver dam, and this is where we pull out. We're within view of Dexter, Minnesota. Thanks to the high water, we could get this far up the Root River to Dexter. And this shows, that's October 12th, and this shows the general route that we had completed after almost 5.5 years. Then we finally have concluded our trip successfully with no major accidents or whatever.